Hey guys, check this out. The new Tiffin GH1 rolled into the shop. I took a couple of pictures and posted it on the owner's page, the GH1 Facebook group, and from that I was asked to do a video since there's not a whole lot of information yet out on these vans, and so I kind of wanted to walk you through with what's going into this van today. And as you can see right here, we are installing our full RIP kit, our ride improvement program. First place you should start on any upgrades to these Mercedes Sprinter vans is on the suspension. So wanted to walk you through and talk about why we do what we do. And so let's start with the front strut here. So as you can see, we actually replaced the front strut, the factory strut. And in this case, this customer chose a Bilstein strut. We also offer Coney strut as an option as well. These vans have a lot of weight added to them, and so while a lot of other suspension providers really focus on just improving the dampening with improved shocks, and certainly that's good, that'll help the stability of the van and improve the ride, but increasing spring rate is also very important. So that's why we add a coil over the front strut. So that'll really help with the added weight that's been put on this van and really enhance the stability and the ride quality. We pair that up with an auxiliary front shock, and so we've got special upper shock mounts, lower shock mounts. These are all proprietary to Agile Offroad, and they're designed with the best geometry available to allow for the maximum travel of these shocks. So we can get up to 5 inches of travel in these front shocks, which really helps improve the ride quality. So other Sprinter suspension builders, they simply don't go with a coilover, and they'll use just a larger bump stop down here. So it's a sumo spring that they put in place of what I'm pointing at here is a factory bump stop. We leave the factory bump stop in place. So again, we're not going to be bottoming out on that bump stop very rarely, because we've got this extra coilover to help support the weight, and we allow the full suspension to be able to breathe, while others might be just resting on that rubber bumper, the sumo spring bump stop. Not the best design in our opinion. We want the van to rest on its suspension, not on the bump stops. So that's why we choose to go with a coilover spring as we do, and then that's complemented with better dampening by having a much better auxiliary shock up front here. All right, so let's move away from the suspension for just a bit while we focus on this additional component here. This is our wheel speed sensor guard. So Mercedes puts their wheel speed sensors in a very vulnerable position, and they're often cracked by rocks bouncing up off the road, debris, sticks can get lodged up here and easily crack this wheel speed sensor. At a cost of about $200 to $300 to get that replaced from Mercedes, the wheel speed sensor guard is a great piece of insurance. What we see quite often is people that are going into the snow, ice will accumulate on here and it'll actually crack the wheel speed sensor as it thaws. So whether it's debris coming up off the road, rocks, or snow, these things are in a very vulnerable position, which is why we came out with this component. So something that we typically will add whenever we're doing suspension. It's a very inexpensive option to help protect that wheel speed sensor. All right, so let's get back to the suspension and let's talk about what we've got going on in the rear here. So as you can see, we've added to the van a full leaf pack. So we've got 8 leaf springs in this leaf pack, and the best thing about it is we remove the 3.5-inch spacer block that Mercedes puts in on the 4-wheel drives. Putting your van up on high heels, we get rid of that and we replace it with a spring pack that is designed for your particular weight of the rear end of your van. We actually weigh the vans when they come into the shop to make sure that we're pairing up the correct spring rate to the weight of the van. So Obviously there's different builds with different weights, and so we're going to pair up your van to have the proper spring to be able to accommodate that additional weight. So I wish I had a video of what was in here before. From the factory, there are two rather thick and very stiff leaves that come on the van, but they're not capable of holding the added weight to this van. So in this case, this is a 4,700 pound spring that pairs up nicely with the GH1. We do have lighter spring rates and heavier spring rates, again, based on what goes into the van, but this is, in our opinion, the best match for the GH1. All right, so now let's turn our attention to the rear shock. In this case, this customer went with the Fox 2.5 degressive valve shock. We feel that this is the best option for the GH1, given it's got the degressive valving, a nice wide 2.5-inch barrel, performs exceptionally well on this van. Okay, now let's talk about how this shock is mounted to the van. So unfortunately, Mercedes has a bit of a design flaw here in the way that this shock bolt, this upper shock bolt, is mounted into the body of the van. What happens quite frequently is that this shock bolt will begin to back out, and when it does, it's very susceptible to just breaking or just coming out completely, and you lose the use of your shock entirely. Got to get out some zip ties and just bundle it up until you can get into the shop. So we've designed this double shear bracket to prevent that from happening. We've doubled the strength back here. We've also complemented it with this tab here that will help prevent and eliminate the potential for this shock bolt from backing out at all. And as you can see, this double shear bracket is designed to make the installation pretty straightforward and simple. We're using factory holes that are already in the van, so no drilling required to get this double shear bracket mounted. And it's, as you can see, it's quite large and robust. We did that intentionally to add strength to the rear end. We have seen some situations of some cracking back here. This added strength will definitely prevent that from happening. Now down below here, let's take a look at the lower double shear bracket. The mounting point that Mercedes supplies on these vans for the lower shock, or the lower shock mount, is some very flimsy steel. You come in contact with a rock and this whole assembly here is gonna bend. And so we've really replaced that with a very robust double shear lower bracket here. And we've also pushed the shock out a little bit forward to improve the geometry, a more vertical stance for that shock, improving the ride and the performance of this rear shock. So a very robust solution down below. And so that's why we're always adding the upper and lower double shear brackets. Now let's talk about the rear differential. This is another design flaw that we've addressed with a differential cover. So the factory differential cover that comes with the Mercedes Sprinter vans sits just a little bit lower than the differential itself. It's about 1/8 of an inch lip that gets easily caught on tree roots. If you're going to a campground, if you're doing some off-roading and you happen to roll over a rock, you're going to peel back this diff cover, drain all your diff fluid without you even knowing it. You get back out on the highway and you burn up your whole rear end. So that's why we've come out with this rear diff cover. We recommend it as one of the first adds to your van. So the rear differential is a beast, and it is incredibly strong and can take a beating. You can bash rocks on it and you're not going to damage it. It's just that lip that hangs down low on that factory diff cover that's the problem. It's very susceptible to getting caught on something and peeling back. So we're often asked, why not just put a skid plate underneath the rear differential? Well, that's a decent option and provides protection. We don't want to reduce the ground clearance by another couple of inches. That's the reason why we use a rear diff cover rather than a skid plate. All right, so coming into the passenger side of the van, we see something that looks a little different than what you might have in your van. That's because installed is a RoamRig BeatBox. This is an absolute incredible sound system that went in this van. Underneath the seat now is a 10-inch subwoofer, an Arc Audio subwoofer. And if I pop down this panel, hard to do with just one hand, you've got the controls to make adjustments to that sound system if need be. They recommend that you just leave it at the factory settings. But there's crossovers underneath here, and then in all the factory locations go an Arc Audio driver, and then up at the top there are Arc Audio tweeters, and then kind of hidden down beneath here is an adjustment knob. That's simply to dial in the bass of the system. If you want to increase the bass more, you can dial it in there more. But what's really cool about this system is that it's virtually plug and play install. It's a pretty easy installation. You do have to remove both seats, obviously, to get this 10-inch subwoofer underneath here. This seat will have to come out, and then the driver's seat comes out because there's that's where your primary wiring power connections are under the driver's seat. The floor mats come out for routing of the cables, and of course the door panels get popped off as well. So I will take you into my van here, and I don't know how the audio is going to come through. I'm shooting this on an iPhone, but give you just kind of a sense as to what the system entails. It is absolutely huge improvement from the factory radio that we all got stuck with. All right, so here's a quick look at the 10-inch sub that gets mounted under the passenger seat of the van. I did snap a recording of the audio in my van, but the iPad that I was using just really couldn't pick up the quality of the sound. So if you're out at one of the Adventure Van Expos, I will be out demonstrating our van out there at quite a few of them. So come stop by. Be happy to let you jump in the passenger seat and listen to how incredible the sound is. So I'm underneath the van now, and just wanted to kind of show you the fuel tank. A lot of Mercedes Sprinter van owners, including myself, are adding larger fuel tanks, and although that may be possible on this van, it's going to be really tough because all of this is going to need to be relocated. So the installation, if you're a do-it-yourselfer, this may be quite a challenge. If you have your van taken into a shop to get a larger fuel tank and you're quoted a large number for installation, that's going to be why. So another option is Agile Offroad does offer an auxiliary fuel tank that can go where the spare tire is. For those that are mounting the spare tire on the back of the van, that could be an option. I actually have a 28-gallon water tank down there, so in my van, to give me extra water capacity. But just want to make you aware of that. Not all vans have this big freeway of what looks like to me to be a lot of plumbing going through that section of the van, so going to be a bit of a challenge. So all right, so that's a wrap. I did forget to mention that this is a 2022 chassis. This is a V6 four-wheel drive model. On the newer 23 chassis, the all-wheel drive model, they will come from the factory, from Tiffin, the Fox 2.0 shock. So they're putting this shock using our auxiliary shock bracket, top and bottom, to mount that in the front. And then in the rear, they will also include this awesome Fox 2.5 digressive valve shock and the upper and lower double shear brackets. So it's not the full RIP kit, but it certainly will help improve the ride tremendously from what comes factory. And for those of you that are purchasing the all-wheel drive models and want to upgrade the suspension, it's not going to take a ton to add and replace those leaf springs that you have in the back here. And then also up front, you would be adding a new strut with a coilover, and then getting the van realigned. Once you replace that strut, the alignment needs to be taken care of as well. So anyhow, I hope you found this video to be helpful and informative. I'll try and continue to bring the Tiffin crowd some content, as I was asked to do this video for them. So again, hopefully you found this to be helpful and informative. And if you have any questions, please drop a comment and I'll be sure to answer all of them. Thank you all, and take care and have a good day. And I hope to see you all out on the trail sometime soon.